For the demo, we set up two JIRA instances. The first one, it's our own JIRA instance here, the blue one. It's running a 7.1.2 version, so pretty new release. And I have a JIRA instance for my external team, which is still running on a 6-ish version. Okay. Before we can sync something, we need a project. So in this case, I'm creating a default basic software development project on my, let's say, own JIRA instance. In this case, I just call it project A with project key PA. Take some time, no issues in there, and I repeat the same for the external system. Of course, in a scenario where you have different clients, you will have projects with a lot of issues already in there, but anyway, you can repeat the same steps. Okay, no projects in there, switching back to the other system. Now we are directly going to configure Backbone. Therefore, we switch to the JIRA project administration and select the new icon or entry issue synchronization. We don't need any getting started here as I'm explaining it. And what we're doing here, it's a local configuration. So we're configuring the integration for both sides. Thus, I need to insert the base URL from the second system and use an integration user, which is used for synchronization. And I can give more details later on this user or users. After creation, we see it project A to project B. The integration is currently stopped. And because we haven't configured anything, we shouldn't start it actually. So having a closer look to project A, project B integration on the connection side, we get the details. We also see that we used a technical integration user on both sides. In this case, I named it similar. Of course, you would have different usernames usually. And maybe you also have different permissions of that user. There we differentiate between basic rights, which are required to like browse project, create, edit, which are really required to access information and write information. So those basic rights are really required mandatory permissions. And the other ones like workflow, attachments, and comments, the permissions we need here to implement all of those features, they're kind of optional if you don't want to use workflow attachments or comment sync features. For the configuration, we just switch the tab and say edit configuration. We will see already in the tabs below that we can configure a lot of different types and type mappings. So the first one is the issue type mappings. Here we decide, for example, if I have a task on the left side, always a task on the other instance side should be created. So we differentiate between mappings of type each other. So the task example would be creating a task on the left side will create a task on the right side, creating a task on the right side will create a task on the left side. But you can also just say, okay, this mapping should be just applied from first to second or second to first. So you're really flexible to map those information. And as I already said, okay, in this case, we are mapping task to task. Notice the different icons of the issue types because just different JIRA versions, they come with different icons. And we already can see that in the field mappings tab, we got some small errors. So switching to the tab and checking out the conflicts, we will see that, oh, two mandatory fields which are required to create a task are not configured, namely summary. So I will synchronize the summary field bidirectionally. And because it's just for the simple example here, also the description field. Of course, we also support more complex fields like select fields, radio buttons, fields with different values where we also provide mappings which can be configured or also automatically detect changes. For example, the version field, you can synchronize it in a way that if you set a fixed version, version A on the left side, and send the issue to the right side where no version A exists, you can decide if a version with that name should be created or not on the other side. So there are a lot of more mappings in here. The third mapping type are the workflow mappings. And those workflow mappings consist out of different rules. Basically, it's a if-then statement. So what does this dialog say now? If I receive a message from project B, which states this issue is in state in progress, and my issue in project A is still in to do, then I will trigger the transition in progress. Okay. This dialog always just shows those transitions which are really available in that state. So if you know your workflow a little bit, you should be able to model it. So no IDs, everything just by values. In this case, we model the same rule on the different sides, and furthermore add a new rule to say, okay, if project A sends me a message and with status done, and I'm in project B are still in progress, I will trigger transition to switch to the workflow state done. And basically that's it. Of course, workflows are longer, workflows are more complex, so it may take some time to configure it, but it's worth it. You don't need to configure everything. You just need to configure those rules you are interested in. Both sides can live their completely own workflow, and you decide which states are kind of translated to states on the other side. If you're just interested in, I would love to see the state of my partner, you can use a field mapping where you just map the status field to a text field, and that's it. So then you won't have a need for the workflow mappings. The next tab is about comments. We just turn comment support on. Comments are synchronized bidirectionally, and we have the choice between an anonym mapping and an enriched mapping. Anonym mapping, as I said, we created this backbone integration user, which is used to communicate between those instances. If you have anonymous mapping, all comments will be created as this user, and you can't see the original commenter on the other side. The enriched mapping allows you to, as you can see in the markup, to add some more details before or maybe after the comment content itself. In this case, we say, okay, the comment was created by author name on a certain date. We not yet support trusted comments, so user impersonation, we will support this soon, but there are a lot of security considerations why we also choosing to not have it in version 2.0. And yeah, we are happy for feedback if you think this one would be really required. Attachments can currently just be turned on, and it will synchronize attachments. I will show you some more details or give you more details on the roadmap later. In one of the upcoming release we already got on a branch, you will be able to filter attachments. So you can define which kind of attachments would you like to send to the partners based on MIME type, on file size. And on the other side, of course, which types of attachments you accept. So maybe you won't accept any incoming exe files or DMGs for the Mac world. And last but not least, the Advanced tab allows you to configure really advanced properties. So one I usually love to explain is the sync edit transition property. So as we, in this case, using the REST API to make our changes with the user, we only can edit or update fields which are on the edit screen or on the create screen, which might limit some scenarios because maybe you don't want to put all fields which should be synced on the edit screen, and you modeled your customer workflow in a way that most of the fields are introduced by transitions during the workflow, and can only be edited in those workflow states. If you have a scenario like that, you could just set up a global transition for that workflow, so pointing from the state into itself with a transition screen, having all of the fields which you potentially sync on it, restricted to the integration user so nobody else can see it. And if you register this transition here by name, Backbone will perform all its operations using the transition. Okay, so these were a lot of explanation, a lot of details. We haven't configured that much, but let's see what we did. So we published the draft, said, yes, we'd like to start the integration. And now switching back to the overview page, we see that the integration is running. To prove that it's working, we need to create an issue, in this case a task, because we said just tasks will be synced. This is a task, and as a description, maybe mention that it is a task which was created in project A. Okay, so there we go. We have our issue we just created. And if we switch now to the other side, the other system, and refresh the project, we see that issue was created by the integration user, containing our summary and description, so the fields we mapped. As reporter, the integration user is entered. If you have a field mapping which kind of maps a reporter, then a different reporter will be shown, but please be aware that as those are user fields, users need to be always present on both sides. Okay, because the synchronization was bidirectional of the fields, we will now change the summary and the description with an exclamation mark, and maybe also write a comment so that we see that comment synchronization is working as well. Okay, and we see Matthias Geiser created this comment now on the green side, switching to the blue side and refreshing. The issue will show that the Backbone integration user created that comment with the enrichment commented by Matthias Geiser on, in this case, the video was recorded on 20 April, 8:31. With the corresponding text, and we also can see that summary and the description fields were updated. So let's write a comment back. In the blue system, I am myself basically, so Tobias Anstedt. I will just ask them why. Synchronizing on the other side, we'll use the integration user and enrich it by my name. Okay. So far, we have seen that the field updates and the comment updates are working. What's about the workflow? If we start the progress on the green side, as expected, the status also switches on the blue side. And because we modeled this additional rule when going to done earlier, we expect that switching to done will result in having the other side switching to done. Yes, it's working. And last but not least, we used attachments. Attachments, maybe before adding them or while adding them, I can explain it. If you add an attachment here on the green side, it will be synced to the blue side. Removing the attachment on the green side will, because there it was created, will remove it on the blue side, but not the other way around. So if now here on this screen, if I would remove the attachment, it won't be deleted on the green side. We're thinking about making this configurable, this behavior, but there's also where we need some feedback from experts and end users. So in this case, everything worked fine, but there might be projects or synchronizations where it doesn't work that good. So if we switch to the project administration, go to our integration and go to the troubleshooting, in this case, we say, yeah, hooray, no problems, get yourself a coffee, which is good. Otherwise, you would have detailed reports of messages which couldn't be processed. We will provide kind of self-service help here. So for each category we know about, we provide help articles. Example could be that, for example, a custom field was deleted or a custom field was switched in the context, so it's not longer available for a project, but you used it in your synchronization. These are usually scenarios where you will get a problem for that issue, and it will be explained how to solve those problems. If we can't identify the problem, so it's unknown for our problem parser, basically, it's a Hercules-like approach, we will provide or offer a way to create a support ticket. So our support team can take care of it, and after understanding the issue, we can provide another help article, and the next customer or next client facing the same problem will already be, have a way to help himself.